What's up, YouTube? This is the Roman Atheist here, Romanus Atheist. Welcome to Wednesday's video. And this time we're doing a Prager video where they're complaining about something YouTube is doing to them. And I'm all for sticking it to YouTube. There are no friends to the LGBT community or the atheist community, at least their algorithm isn't. That's why there's the LGBT lawsuit, and Mr. Atheist proved that atheist isn't a topic that goes very well with the argument either. But PragerU is mad for different reasons, ones I can't quite get behind.
The most important lawsuit in America right now, and perhaps the free world, is Prager University versus YouTube.
Well, that's a little presumptuous there, Prager University. I don't know really what to say because that's probably false. No matter what your argument is, there's probably some lawsuit going on that might be more important. Like maybe one to keep an innocent person from dying because they're put on death row. That's a possibility. I don't know how you'd feel about that, though.
You might consider this a grandiose statement, especially since I'm the lead attorney for PragerU.
You may be very right there, Mr. Prager University attorney. That is pretty grandiose. Can you explain why? Or why it's not grandiose?
I assure you, it's not. That's because this case is about the most fundamental freedom Americans have, freedom of speech.
Yep, I agree. That is a very important freedom, and not to side with YouTube, because I'm not exactly one to do that very much, but YouTube is a company, and I know you're going to bring something up about that, but YouTube in this case is a company, and freedom of speech doesn't necessarily apply to that. So, yeah, sorry, bud.
As enunciated in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. All our freedoms, the very concept of freedom, springs from this right.
See, but what this lawsuit that you're bringing forward is about specific videos that have been blocked for, like, restricted parts of YouTube. Like, they're restricted to young people and that kind of stuff. So you're more arguing that your videos should be accessible to youth, but you have to first bring forward some of that, if I remember correctly, but I'll let him get into that part in the video. My apologies for jumping ahead a little bit.
Lose it, and we're no longer free, not as individuals and not as a nation.
Yep, those are things enshrined in our Constitution, not YouTube's policies. So far, this lawsuit doesn't hold too much water in my understanding, as much as I would like it to.
I'm not willing to accept that. PragerU doesn't accept that, and you shouldn't either.
And I would also not accept that, especially from a government. But in this instance, I'm a little bit less inclined to support your specific motion as you get into the videos that are blocked. Oh, and when I say blocked, I mean age restricted, which is a different thing, and I believe that's what they're suing over, but we'll let him finish.
Okay, so how did we get into this situation? A little background. PragerU is what is called a 501c3, a nonprofit educational media company.
Well, I'm glad you're a nonprofit, but you claiming to being educational might be a little bit of false advertising or something, because not much of it's educational, and a lot of it is some political slander, to be honest.
It's known primarily for its 5-minute videos. In 2016, viewers began to notice that certain PragerU videos were no longer available.
If I recall correctly, they're all available, you just can't be on a internet source that has some form of blocking agent that YouTube helps that site weed out, that internet weed out those videos that are deemed less acceptable. But I think he'll bring that up, so I can let him do that.
YouTube had placed them on its restricted list, which prevents the videos from playing on computers using content filters to screen out violence and pornography.
See? Restricted. Not blocked. Restricted. People can still see these videos. They just have to be on a device that is willing to see them. So I would argue that they have less grounds to stand on than the demonetization lawsuits that are going forward.
PragerU assumed this was simply a case of bad algorithms, but YouTube said no. Each restricted video had been reviewed by a walking, talking human.
Good. I would prefer that to an algorithm anyway. Algorithms are known to be very biased, and so are people, but when people do it, they can be easily checked and removed if they are biased in a way that is dangerous to the platform's security, where algorithms take a lot more work to remove biases. Yeah.
The list included such diverse titles as Are the Police Racist? By Heather McDonald, Israel's Legal Founding by Alan Dershowitz, and even a video on the 10 Commandments by Dennis Prager.
So, that last video for sure, but the Israel founding and Are Police Racist and that kind of stuff, that's some separate stuff, but I want to get into the 10 Commandments video, which is why I decided to make this video in the first place. So, the restricted spot is generally used towards to keep children from watching videos like that are harmful and that kind of thing in that way. So the video Dennis Prager did on the 10 Commandments shouldn't be shown to children because that is a form of indoctrination, and that is something that we don't need to have on a platform in this kind of way. And since the restricted tab keeps those videos from children and other people who just don't want to see them, good. That's something that I think would be better off praised, as long as the average person who doesn't want to have those things restricted can still have access to them. I think children shouldn't have access to those videos, and I would include Are the Police Racist, that video, and Israel's founding, especially when both of those videos, if I can remember, were relatively inaccurate, but I haven't seen them in a long time, so I don't know off the top of my head. But anyway, I'll let him continue his video.
YouTube deemed each one unsuitable for young people, treating these videos the same as they would, say, for ones containing pornography or excessive violence.
Now, here's where PragerU gets even more disingenuous than I normally do. So that restricted thing on the YouTube guidelines type stuff, and I read this probably about a week ago, and it says, like, they give a list of possible examples and then other discretionary parts that YouTube has. Like, they can decide anything to be on the restricted if they want to, and there's nothing that says it specifically is violence or porn that can be restricted. It can be anything according to the YouTube guidelines. And I don't know if I have any restricted videos. I might just not be big enough, so I probably don't get any videos restricted. But it's kids that are being blocked from seeing these things, and I am more than okay with that. And I'm okay if kids can't see my videos too, to be honest. They don't need to hear. If I'm stumbling my words a little bit, my apologies. But what I'm trying to say is these videos are there. This system is there to block kids from seeing those types of things, and YouTube can have their own discretion on what videos can and can't be seen. And I would agree things like the Israel video or the Are Police Racist and definitely the 10 Commandments are stuff children don't need to know about. Adults, you can tell them about it all you want, but this video is more about PragerU wants to indoctrinate children and YouTube isn't letting them, so now they're suing YouTube over First Amendment rights. But I'll let them get into it. Most of the rest of it's some legal stuff that'll be interesting to hear, and I probably won't jump in as much.
Keep in mind, this is PragerU we're talking about, as Main Street as you can get.
I don't know if that's supposed to be funny or if they actually think that. They're not exactly in the mainstream of thought if you really look at their videos, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Their videos are just generally disingenuous, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does, but anyway, let's keep going.
And that ultimately turns out to be the issue. PragerU's center-right content.
I would argue that they are far-right content and definitely not center-right. But it's more neo-corporatism than anything else. But again, I don't go very deep into that stuff. I'm not all that well researched. So from my perspective, they're more disingenuous than just center-right.
Many of their videos, by the way, have no political theme at all. Offends YouTube sensibilities.
And for better or worse, YouTube has control over what is on their platform and current legal loopholes that have been put around. They're able to claim they're gonna go over this a little bit, but they're able to claim both being a publisher and being a public platform. But since they do pay many of their creators, they have a little bit of control in where other public platforms may not, if that makes sense.
In other words, the videos aren't being restricted to protect young people from inappropriate content.
I would say they are. I think I'm relatively glad YouTube is attempting to stop this indoctrination. And again, if I have to sacrifice my channel from young kids, which probably should happen anyway, to get PragerU away from children, I am more than happy to do so. YouTube, just age restrict all of their videos, age restrict all my videos, and I will be more than happy.
They're being restricted to protect young people from ideas YouTube disagrees with.
So this is another point where YouTube gets not YouTube, PragerU gets very disingenuous, because they are not the only channel that is facing this type of censorship in some way, political type channels like they are. I would argue that left leaning channels are being targeted, center channels are being targeted, center left, center right, far right, right, left, all of them. I think they're all relatively being targeted, but and age restricted in some way because of the topics that they bring up from all of those perspectives. They all are generally not exactly kid friendly, and you could disagree with me with that, but then you should support channels like the Young Turks when they fight YouTube against this type of stuff, because you're complaining about a similar thing. And I would actually argue children don't need to hear any of that, and outside of possibly like school education, teaching them about just current events in general, but with a safe type filter. But some people would disagree with me with that, and not much I can do about it.
We didn't want to sue. We tried to reach an accommodation. But when YouTube wouldn't take the offending videos off the restricted list, there are now 100 on that list, we had no other option.
YouTube didn't kowtow. Good for them. Again, YouTube, you can age restrict my videos, won't be mad, won't be sued. I'm not monetized currently anyway, so that doesn't matter. I have like 23 subscribers. But just political content, just age restrict all of it. As long as you let everyone who is 18 and older have access to it, then I don't care. Go for it. Age restrict whole channels if you have to. Age restrict me if you have to. Just kids don't need to be indoctrinated, and they shouldn't be indoctrinated on political stuff. Even if they agree with me, they shouldn't be indoctrinated into believing that. People should go and formulate their own opinions without indoctrination. And that includes religion, politics, everything. Children should be able to formulate their own opinions without influences of outside people. And that is where I'm at.
YouTube was infringing on our right to free speech.
Unfortunately, free speech only applies to government actions and has nothing to do with companies, so they are not infringing on any rights. Sorry, mate.
We filed in federal court in late 2017 and thereafter in California state court.
So, to be clear, PragerU is not the only group suing YouTube currently. There's an LGBT organization that's suing. There's a bunch of channels on there that have been suing, and what I've been saying here about political content, I don't attribute that to the LGBT stuff, because from my perspective, LGBT issues aren't political because of their necessariness just for children who are in a queer identity. Well, I'm not a child, but like myself, should be able to know that they're not alone. So I'm not saying necessarily age restrict that, but politics in general should be an age-restricted type topic. But I have a feeling people will disagree with me, and I'm happy to have a discourse.
Wait a second, you might say. YouTube, which is owned by Google, is a private company.
I did say that. You're right, thanks for predicting me. Oh wait, I already knew that was gonna happen, and yet I put it there anyway. Cool. Way to look smart, Mr. Prager, you attorney person. But there are, unfortunately, the laws that you're going to bring forward were intentionally left in loopholes due to lobbyists from social media platforms like YouTube and Facebook and that type of stuff. They're written in a way where these sites can get away with both, whether you like that or not.
Can't they do anything they want? The answer is yes and no. Yes, if they are a publisher. No, if they are a public forum.
So here's some time to point out the fact that PragerU is being hypocritical right now, because they're arguing that YouTube should have to follow these specific regulations towards their company, or that are directed about public platforms, but then also publishers. But from my understanding of those laws, they were written before YouTube was an existing thing, and definitely before YouTube started paying its creators. Last I checked, I don't know off the top of my head when those laws were created, but they were created in a way to protect companies from stuff that the users said, which is admirable, I guess, and why we have this whole Russian troll problem currently, or to some extent why we have that problem. But those laws don't exactly apply very well to YouTube, seeing as YouTube pays most of its creators. I don't know if they pay PragerU specifically. PragerU might not be monetized, but I've seen ads on their videos, so they probably are. Or actually, I think that means they are. But what I'm getting at there is when they pay YouTubers, I think that's when they move over from being a public forum to being a publisher, because they're paying you. I hope you understand that, PragerU. They're paying you, and if they don't like a video that you have up there, I think that's relatively fair. We're already almost 20 minutes in, and I'm very sorry about that, because this is a 5-minute video I'm responding to. But yeah, they're paying you, Prager University. I think they have a little bit more control than you should let on. I'm not nearly close enough to know what the YouTube partner thing does, because I can't even see it yet, so yeah, but I have a feeling you're getting paid, and then you don't exactly have that much of a leg to stand on there, mister.
So what's the difference? This gets right to the nub of the matter. A publisher chooses the content that resides on its site. The New York Times is a perfect example. You can't write a story and just expect the New York Times to publish it. The Times chooses what appears on its pages or website. And if they publish a story that contains a malicious lie or violates copyright law, they can be sued. PragerU is also a publisher. It decides what material gets placed on its website. Most sites are publishers. In contrast, a public forum, which can be a physical location like the classic town square or a shopping mall, or a virtual location like a website, is a place that must allow individuals and organizations to exercise their free speech rights.
So I think it's a little bit more nuanced on that, but nuanced than that, but that's a relatively fair explanation. I mean, it's very much skewed in a way that makes it seem like PragerU has a shot at winning this lawsuit. But the issue is that since YouTube pays its creators in some way that it is a publisher, but then for the videos that they don't pay the creators on, it would make sense if it would be considered a public platform. But then also it's nuanced in, like, what about on the New York Times? Many of those articles have like a comment section type thing that people can comment on, but they don't get punished for the videos that are put, not the videos, the comments that are put on those articles. So there's more to it than that simplistic explanation, if that makes sense.
YouTube is an example of a public forum. In fact, YouTube describes itself as a public forum.
I haven't actually heard that before. Oh, not from YouTube directly. So, I would like a source there. Prager University? Not that there is any, so yeah.
You make a video, YouTube hosts it, and anyone with an internet connection can watch it.
Well, you missed the part where YouTube pays the creators who are more successful on the platform, who get 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in a year. Then you can become a YouTube partner and get paid to make those videos. And you miss a little bit of that in that explanation, don't you, sir?
Facebook is also a public forum, and so is Twitter. Here's why this is so important. A public forum under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, a law co-sponsored by Democrats and Republicans and passed by Congress in 1996.
Yeah, I'll let you finish, just give me a second. So that law is relatively outdated and isn't exactly built up or was written in a time where we could necessarily comprehend Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, because none of them existed in that time. We don't know how they actually fit based on current laws, which is why there needs to be an update in the legal system towards public forums and regular publishers.
Is not subject to liability for content placed on its site. If someone posts a video about how to build a bomb or writes a threatening comment, the public forum website cannot be held legally responsible for that content. That's a good thing. It gives YouTube and other public forums the chance to host a wide variety of material, from nature videos to political diatribes, without fear of being sued.
I agree that this is good, but again, as I'm saying, political content, and religious content for that matter, and the fact that age restriction is a system that's more a system of protecting children, and as it rightfully should be, you just think that your content is safe for children, where YouTube would disagree. So that's what the lawsuit really is. Not a freedom of speech type video, because that would be a little disingenuous, wouldn't you think? That would be a fairly disingenuous to claim that this is a free speech thing, that YouTube is violating free speech because they disagree with us, when all they're doing is protecting content YouTube finds not recommended for children as not recommended for children. So that's the only part where you guys disagree and where I disagree. And like I said, I would be okay if all of my content got age restricted, if PragerU also got all age restricted. Does that make sense?
And it worked. And then it didn't. A few years ago, the social media giants, Google, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter started to behave not like public forums, but like publishers.
So I would argue in some way that you're not wrong, but it's more of a mixture of the two, where they're both a public forum and a publisher. Or at least YouTube is. Twitter, I don't know. But that's why the laws need updating, because when the law that you just mentioned was written, none of these were even an idea in someone's mind. So how would a law be able to prepare for that? So Section 230, the Communications Decency Act, should maybe be updated. Maybe that's an idea. Create some new regulations targeting that. Maybe go a little bit more in depth. Maybe break up the media companies. I don't know. There's some political stuff going with that. But I don't know if you'd actually support that. But I'll let him finish up.
They stopped following Section 230, which specifically requires that these websites promote a true diversity of political discourse, and began to judge content by their own political and social criteria. In other words, the social media giants wanted both ways.
Or YouTube wanted advertising money, and some of the stuff on YouTube didn't really work well with the advertisers, including some of your Prager University videos, much to your chagrin. But Twitter and Google and Facebook, they all had stuff that they needed to deal with too on their platforms, like Russian trolls that they might need to deal with, and that the government wants them to deal with. So, doing something in this form, a specific, not publish, oh man, I'm blanking on the term, free platform isn't possible anymore just by how diverse the internet is. I hope that makes sense to you, Mr. Lawyer, sir.
They want the protections of a public forum and the editorial control of a publisher. We're fine if they're a publisher, and we're fine if they're a public forum. They just can't be both. If we win our legal action, YouTube will have to return to the way things were when they started.
Again, just to remind you guys, this whole lawsuit started because like 100 or so of their like thousands of videos got age restricted, and they're calling it a freedom of speech thing. I don't really understand it still. Anyway, let's let him finish.
That's freedom. But if we lose, YouTube gets to act as a publisher while pretending to be a public forum.
Well, there's other possibilities as well, of course, but we don't need to go into them. We're too disingenuous, right, Prager University? Anyway, yeah, cool.
That would mean much less freedom, and then eventually, no freedom.
Maybe on this specific platform, but you're forgetting that freedom of speech is more connected with the government and the Constitution and less to do with what is known as a company that you would jump to defend if it was a liberal being targeted by YouTube and not yourself. And you'll say no regulations or something. Now, that might be a little bit of a straw man, probably is, and I apologize for creating that fallacy, but can you really say that they wouldn't do that? I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Because the most powerful internet sites on earth will determine what you see and what you don't.
Only if you don't want to see the restricted videos, because that's what we're suing over, because some of our videos were restricted. Right, Mr. Prager University? I hope you're making Dennis Prager proud.
I'm Eric George, Managing Partner, Brown George Ross, for Prager University.
Okay, so some clarifying points. Like I said, a lot of what Prager University is mad about is because YouTube deems some of the videos that they were releasing as indoctrination type stuff. So they didn't want kids to see it, and I would agree with them. And a bit of my main point, I guess, is YouTube first, currently in the legal setting, can block that kind of stuff, especially when they're paying you, which, from my understanding, they are. But more of what I'm getting at, unless you decide to not monetize the video, then it'd be more surprising. But a lot of the point that I was making this video is politics in general. I think children don't necessarily need to learn about that they should learn about the ideas in school. They shouldn't be told which is better or which is worse, because that leads to a form of indoctrination and has the same issue as indoctrinating children into religion, which is why I'm against both. And why this lawsuit seems really silly to the outside, because they're trying to indoctrinate with politics and religion. That's nice and fun. But anyway, this is the Roman Atheist. Hope you guys don't get too mad at me. I kind of have an unorthodox or different understanding to this than other people, but I'm the Roman Atheist. Hope you had a nice day. Please comment if you agree, if you disagree, if you love me, if you don't love me. I don't know. Just comment. I enjoy seeing the comments. Like if you want to see more videos of like YouTube type stuff. Dislike if you really want to. I don't care that much. I just want to see what people enjoy on my content, if that makes sense. Hope you guys had a nice day. Sorry for this one being so long. Peace.